Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thanks for joining me. So today I want to give you my thoughts on a brand new Netflix series called Nightmares and Daydreams. This is from Indonesian filmmaker Joko Anwar, who you may know from movies like Impetigore and Satan's Slaves. But this is a series that is told in 7 episodes involving these ordinary people who come across these kind of extraordinary supernatural type circumstances that may be keys to the answer about the origin of our world and the imminent threat we will soon face. And this is a series that gives you a lot of different flavors, a lot of different genres that it's working with here. Namely psychological horror, supernatural horror, but you also get some drama as well, and some sci-fi, some mystery, a little bit of thriller in there. So there's just a whole lot kind of going on in these 7 episodes. And this is a series that nearly all 7 of these episodes stand alone on their own as kind of individual stories. However, as you continue to make your way through it, you notice there are little references, subtle references in a very thin kind of connection throughout all 7 of them until ultimately everything kind of connects and it brings everything together in the end. Now, I'm not going to give away how it does or what that connection looks like, as I think that is part of the fun and kind of discovering it and figuring it out. But overall, this is a show that I had a pretty good time with, and I found it to be pretty consistent in terms of quality throughout the entire 7 episodes. And while these 7 episodes are telling different stories with different characters, there are some similar and recurring themes that we see throughout the entire series, namely themes involving family. That is a predominant and major part of pretty much every single one of these episodes. And that speaks to one of the highlights of the entire show, and that is the characters. I found the characters here really engaging and well written. And for the most part, people that if I didn't take an immediate connection to, they were at least people that I found interesting to want to follow and just go along on their journey and their story. And as I said, one of the main themes is family. And most of the characters that we follow in this show are characters of lower class, some of them even in poverty. And so you're finding these characters who are in pretty much desperate types of situations. They're looking for something kind of miraculous to help them and help them get them out of their situation. And I really like the series' emphasis on the role of a father and the father having to provide and protect and take care of his kids and his family. And then seeing what types of situations and circumstances they find themselves in and what they're willing to do and how far they're willing to go to be the provider and the protector of their families. And obviously it leans into some of the horror and sci-fi type stuff, so things get pretty wild and crazy, but it always made for something that was pretty interesting and compelling. And the show also introduces some interesting kind of ethical dilemmas and stuff like that, to where, you know, how far are you willing to go? What sort of rules are you willing to break to be able to provide for your family type deal? And so there's always something interesting and kind of compelling going on that really kind of pulls you into the characters and the story that's being presented. And so the show, while there is horror, sci-fi, mystery type elements, I think first and foremost, it really is kind of a darker, almost psychological drama at its core, with some of those other elements kind of, you know, sprinkled in and sprinkled throughout. But it's a show that really focuses more on character and their predicaments than I would have expected. But I think that is one of the show's strengths. And the show even touches on some themes like mental illness, especially within the homeless population. And there's a particular episode involving that subject that it just has kind of an interesting, fresh, and unique way of looking at some of these more serious themes like poverty, like homelessness, like people who are basically have nothing and are just trying to find money enough to be able to provide the next meal for their family. But it adds this interesting kind of creative, horrific, sci-fi, supernatural type twist into these situations and circumstances that I thought overall worked pretty well. And while I do think all the episodes are pretty strong, a couple of them that really stood out that I would say are probably my 2 favorite. The first one is Poems in Pain. And this one tells the story of this author who's a woman who is struggling to complete her next novel. And she finds that her own life begins to mirror the main character in the story that she's writing. And this one I just found to be a compelling story. It has some good mystery. It has kind of a cool supernatural type twist on the way the story is told. It's got a good performance by the main character. It touches on some interesting themes of like the tortured artist and, you know, how much do you stay true to yourself versus how much do you kind of have to sell out in order to be able to survive and make money and stuff like that. And so, yeah, just some good stuff here. The other episode that really stood out to me was the final one called P.O. Box. And this one tells the story of this professional diamond appraiser. And this woman, her sister went missing 5 years ago, and she decides to start searching for her, and it leads her to some very unexpected places. And this is another one that I just found to be a compelling story and just a really good mystery. And I just like the way that the story unfolded and kind of the different directions and places it goes to. And it has a pretty gnarly and pretty cool and satisfying finale. I do have some criticisms with the show. My main criticism is regarding the CGI in that it doesn't look great. And I don't know if it's intentional, if this is really the look they were going for. Perhaps they had some, you know, budgetary limitations and weren't able to make it look as good as they had hoped. But yeah, the CGI here doesn't look great. Luckily, though, there's really only 2 episodes where it's featured predominantly, and so it doesn't hinder the show, my overall enjoyment, all that much, but it is a little bit of an issue that I had. And then the other issue, I feel like it verges a tad bit into spoiler type territory, so I'll be a little bit vague, but it kind of has to do with the way that the episodes conclude. And really, you're not really sure how it's all going to come together, obviously, until you get to the end. But there's a way that each of the episodes conclude that is a bit unsatisfying. However, once you kind of get to the end of the show, it sort of makes sense and you kind of realize what they're sort of doing to kind of bring it all together. And so kind of on reflection, it's not as much of a criticism, but in the moment as I was watching it, I was kind of like, huh, okay, that was an interesting way to end the episode. I'm not really sure why they did that, although, again, once you get to the end, it makes a little bit more sense. But like I said, overall, I think this is a pretty strong show. It's pretty consistent. Of the 7 episodes, I don't think there is a bad one in the lot. There isn't any of them that I think are going to be all-time classics or going to completely blow your mind, but I think it is just overall a consistent and good show that I would recommend. So for me, I'm going to give Nightmares and Daydreams, I'm going to go like a solid 7 out of 10. I would recommend it. I think, though, if you watch the first episode and you enjoy it and are kind of, you know, enjoying the vibe of the show, I would say go ahead and watch the rest. If you're not into it after the first episode, I would say you probably don't need to watch the rest of the show. So those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. Let me know if you've seen this, what your thoughts were. It's pretty unique. It's different. I kind of like some of just the different flavors, and I really like some of the themes and concepts that it brought up. I had a pretty good time with it overall. So those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.